Well. Angels are winners of 4 of the last 5, and Johnny, they temporarily knocked the Mariners out of the wild card race right now. This is a great day, and it's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And today's show is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we've been fans of this team for years, and it's our second season here at Locked On Angels, and we appreciate you being a Locked On everydayers. By the way, you can join us every day this week as we recap each game against the Mariners. On today's show, we're going to talk about Jered Weaver's comments regarding George Kirby's comments about being in the game too long, and would coaches like Jered Weaver even work in today's day and age? We're going to talk about all of that. But Mike, I got to give a shout out to Julio Rodriguez, who joins a 30-30 club at age 22 or younger. Mike Trout, Ronald Acuna Jr., A-Rod are among those names. The Angels defeat the Mariners 8-5 in extra innings. You know, I have a feeling I know how Julio feels. Let me see here. Yeah, he's not feeling very good about that right now, throwing a fit, as a lot of Mariners fans might be doing at the moment. You know, I know they left the game early because they in the 9th inning, even though they came back. You know, a lot of people didn't stick around to see what happened, and what happened was that the Angels won, Mike. How about that? What a shocker.
Yeah.
In a wild game. How crazy was that game?
Yeah, and they were down initially 3-0 in the bottom of the first. The Mariners got 3 runs. One of those runs came on a sacrifice fly from Teoscar Hernandez. Now, Jordan Adams made a really nice play to keep that from being a home run. Unfortunately,
he did. The
next batter hit a home run, and so it was 3-0. Angels got 2 of those back with Logan Ohtani's home run.
What a stud, man. He got 2 home runs in this one, 2-run home run, and then he did it again on the top of the 4th. I think that everybody's starting to get a dose of what the Angels have in store in terms of their young guys. Logan Ohtani is one of them. There was a play where Julio ran from second to third, and Neto was able to get him at third, which we've seen multiple times this season. And I tweeted out, the league is going to learn not to run on Zach Neto from second to third when the ball goes his way. So just a great demonstration of the young players that we have that are giving us, anything to root for at this point.
John, did you see the stats? He was, and I think maybe had one more hit, but last I checked, he was 5 for 12 with 3 home runs since that photo of him sitting in the dugout, really frustrated with himself and his offensive production. So, hey, Logan, anytime you want to just sit in the dugout and be upset, we're all for it as Angel fans because he has really responded. And that's what we've been waiting for from this team and from the leaders of this team, Johnny.
No kidding.
We talked about how Zach Neto is somebody that can lead this team. Here they are winning with him back in the lineup. And maybe perhaps Logan Ohtani is the dual threat, right? We thought it'd be Trout and Ohtani as the great 1-2 punch, but maybe perhaps in 2024, it's going to be Neto and Ohtani as our 1-2 punch. And I would
Schanuel in there too.
Oh man, I'd be okay with that. And Here's the other thing that I was really excited about last night is Reid Detmers pitched really well, 7 innings, 3 runs, didn't walk anybody, 7 Ks, 108 pitches. John, this is 2 starts in a row against 2 potential playoff teams, the Orioles and the Mariners, where he's pitched really well. Against the Baltimore Orioles, he went 6 2/3 innings, gave up just 1 run and struck out 5 and kept the Angels in that game. So back-to-back quality starts from Reid Detmers. It's always good to see because he's really been inconsistent this year.
Mike, the average of velocity on his pitches was down from the year average once again, which means he has better control. He used the changeup as his second most pitch behind the fastball, and he had a lot more control in this one, obviously without the walks. And also, I have to say, like, he recovered from that first inning, and that was great to see. But again, 24 called strikes plus whiffs on his pitches in this one. So Detmers really was strong, and he went pitch for pitch with Logan Gilbert, who I'm a big fan of. Logan Gilbert for sure.
Yeah. I wonder what it is with Detmers and how his velocity will be a little bit higher in a game, and maybe like last night's game, it's a little bit lower. I wonder if it's just how amped up he gets. And
I think so.
And then also, like, are they correcting him? Are they saying, hey, bro, you need to slow it down just a bit? Yeah. And I wonder how that is mentally for a pitcher. I haven't played.
Ohtani behind the dish has got to be a big part of that as well. I mean, gosh, since he's been back, it's been great to see him call a game. Mike, I was frustrated with the way this one turned out because the Angels had the bases loaded and the opportunity to score. Bill Hasselman held up Kyron Paris coming around. Hasselman's been awful this year. In fact, this is what I looked like when Hasselman didn't send him. I was ticked off just like Julio Rodriguez right here. If you're watching on the video side, we've got a nice little GIF for you. But that's how I felt after that happened. Yeah. And then he's off the bag and doesn't tag up on the sacrifice fly. Right. Number one, that's like rule number one that you learn in Little League. So what is Paris doing? Number two, why isn't Hasselman screaming at him to get back on the bag and tag up on that one?
It reminded me of that play last year when Taylor Ward thought Altuve was throwing him the ball and Altuve was just doing a back pick. Yeah. And the first base coach didn't say a word.
Mayshore didn't say anything to Taylor Ward. And so,
come on.
Yeah, Machete got Taylor Ward out.
You guys are out there to help the base runners know what the situation is. Obviously, the base runners need to know that as well, but you're the second set of eyes and ears. And the fact that he's not communicating in that moment is awful. And he's had a really bad 2 or 3 weeks with Hasselman at third base because we've had some really terrible calls there. And again,
Trey Cabbage ran through his sign the other day.
That's what I was going to mention. I'm glad he ran through it because we wouldn't have had a run in that inning if we didn't run through it. We wouldn't have won that game if he didn't run through it, right?
Mike, I have to say it. Bottom of the 9th, Aaron Loup comes in, gives up 3 singles in a row. And again, I'm feeling a lot like Julio here where he's throwing a fit. And then Aaron Loup gets out of it.
Yeah,
it's time to say nice things about Aaron Loup.
Aaron Loup, attaboy. Way to fight, man. Way to be the dog. Way to go and get it, man. I just love, like, he got a strikeout, then they got a force out at home, and then he got a ground out to first base. And it was great to see him get out of that inning because the very next inning in the top of the 10th, Brandon Drury hits a 2-run home run, gives the Angels the lead, and then Loup is still in the bottom of the 10th, which I thought was an interesting call. Then I realized that Crawford was at the plate. He strikes him out, and then Nevin brings in Marte, and you already mentioned it, Julio Rodriguez hits his 30th home run, a 2-run home run. Now, this ball, Johnny, was a sinker
down.
It was, I mean, he was doing his best, like, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson impression.
Oh, I was going to say he was doing his best Vladdy Guerrero Sr.
Yeah, Vladdy did the same thing.
He hit that thing below the zone. It was a hard sinker. It was like 94, 95. Julio golfed it out, and the fan in the stands made a great play. And at that point of the game, I was looking like this. I was ticked off that Julio was golfing that one out and put the Mariners back in this one. And so I'm just going to keep using that GIF. I love it. But it was pretty funny to just think like, man, what a pitch and what a swing from Julio to hit that one out.
Yeah.
And I'd be a lot more upset if the Angels didn't come back and win this game the way that they did in the top of the 11th. Right, Mike?
Right. Yeah. Paris had a moment where Escobar singles and he kind of froze running from second to third. And it probably just is rookie experience. But again, I'm going to throw a little bit of that on Hasselman. Like, Hasselman needs to say something there. Now, I know it was a line drive and he needed to make sure that it would go through. So I give him grace in that moment. But with first and third and one out, Grichuk singles and Escobar goes to third. Angels get the lead again. And then Jordan Adams adds on a run, an error at third base. It's an RBI. And then Schanuel comes in and gets an RBI single. So 3 straight hits, knocking in runs, made it 8-5. And I'm so glad they got those runs because that lead felt almost impossible. I know it wasn't impossible, but it felt almost impossible. Like the Angels just kept stepping on the neck of their opponents. Something that they haven't done all year, John. This is something that we haven't seen them do in a really long time. This is what good teams really, really do. And I'm so thankful they did it last night because it was a really fun game to watch. And then Jimmy Herget comes in, and when he's on, he's really on. And he came in the bottom of the 11th and got the save. And the Angels did walk away with an 8-5 victory. And the good news was that they did knock the Mariners out of the wild card chase, at least wild card race. Right now, they're about a half a game out. And our buddy from Locked On Rangers, Bryce, actually tweeted at us and gave us a standing ovation and thanked us. So Bryce, you're welcome.
For now, they are not in the wild card spot for now.
Right.
For now, there's still 2 more games. I understand that, but gosh darn.
It feels so good.
It feels good. Come on, Angel fans. That felt good, didn't it? Listen, I was worried about the same thing you were. It just feels like the Angels, you've said it before on this podcast, they keep pace with their opponents and they can't put away their opponents. And the way that those extra innings were going, it just felt like they were keeping pace. You know, they're down 3 right away. Logan Ohtani gets them back into the game, makes it 3-3, and then they're cruising the rest of the way through this game, back and forth. Like, when are the Angels going to come through in this one? And so it was great to see, you know, Drury be clutch, the young guys be clutch. What was the tweet from Jeff Fletcher? It was like 3 first-round picks of the Angels all came through in extra innings, so that was fun to see. So again, I'm very pleased with the way that the young guys came through in this one.
And speaking of the young guys, Johnny Schanuel, 18 straight games now reaching base.
Yes.
What a player this guy is, and what a fun guy he's going to be able to watch. Like, I'm excited about this guy at first base. His power, I believe, is going to come. The fact that he's getting hits and knocking in runs and getting on base and walking, like that's what this team has needed all season long. And I love that he's filling that role.
I got to get one more in, Mike.
Come on.
Here it is.
Come on.
Tungsten Arm, Julio Doyle. Again, sets a record 30-30 age 22 season for Julio Doyle. I love it. I got to get it in. Hey, the Angels are back at it against the Mariners tonight, 6:40 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to talk about those Jered Weaver tweets regarding George Kirby and what that means for coaching in this day and age. We'll talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Sleeper. You can swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you could win up to 100 times your money. All you got to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and are going to decide that they're going to overperform or underperform in their stat categories, and maybe perhaps we'll add one on there. We'll ask our friends at Sleeper if they'll add a John category. How many times will he play that Julio GIF or GIF on the show today?
You want me to do it again? I can do it again. There we go.
Is it GIF or GIF? Help me.
I think at this point you can say either one. I think it's going to be just fine.
I wonder if that one is something you could bet on.
There you
the
go.
Fantasy app too. Hey, come on, Sleeper. We're going to help you out with this. Hey, get your picks right, and you can win big. And Sleeper works really fast as well. Entries can be made in 30 seconds or less, and the withdrawals are safe and fast on all payouts. You can download the Sleeper app today, and when you do, use our promo code Locked On at sign up, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. If you haven't downloaded it yet, you should. Use our promo code. Check out Sleeper today.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, don't forget that we're recapping each game against the Mariners, and then the Angels come back home this weekend. And right in time for a Fan Mail Friday, we know you have lots of questions, and we have lots of answers for you. The Angels are back at it tonight against the Mariners, 6:40 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Mariners pitcher George Kirby had some really strong comments after his most recent start last week. And he said, I wish I wasn't out there for the 7th inning, to be honest. This was after he gave up a game-tying home run. It was a 2-run home run on his 102nd pitch. He threw about 90 pitches at that point, and then he wished that he had been taken out or didn't actually go back in the game. And so that kind of got some traction on Twitter and on social media. And Jered Weaver, ding, he actually responded. One of our favorite Angels, your favorite Angel.
Yes.
He said this is why I'll never be any kind of coach in the big leagues, to be honest. I shouldn't have been out there. I threw 90 pitches. What the bleep? And he didn't put bleep. He put something else.
Right.
Embarrassing,
Weaver,
truly embarrassing. Grab your bleep and let's go to work. And so that was not the only tweet that George Kirby heard from former Major League ball players. Roger Clemens said something. Houston Street said something. Other people said something. A lot of former pitchers were really intrigued by his comments. I think intrigued is probably a soft word. They were angry with his comments. Now, to George's credit, he did apologize the next day. He said he apologized to Scott Service and had productive conversations that came out of his emotional comments. So good on him. Johnny, 2 questions for you. Here's the first one. I would love your thoughts. We really ask for, especially when it comes to the Angels. We want the Angels players to be real and honest. We want the coaches to be real and honest. We want to know what's going on. Is this a moment where a player was real and honest and then he got beat up for it?
Yeah, I think it's wrong time, wrong place. And to say that to the media, I think that is a conversation that you need to have with your manager. I understand Kirby being out there too long. And the way I first heard it was kind of like, man, I just felt like I was out there too long. I felt like, I was out there for, 12 pitches too many. It was like I had it in the gas tank and then I lost it. So I understand that mentality. And I don't think that he was off base or out of line there. Where Weaver is coming from is that there's been a huge shift in pitch count, Mike, and the way that these pitchers go. I mean, the one thing that you and I are so frustrated with this season and past seasons with like Detmers and Sandoval and Suarez is pitch efficiency. The guys don't have pitch efficiency anymore. You can go out there and throw a lot of pitches, but when you're at 100 pitches in the fifth inning, that's not efficient. That's not helpful. That does nothing. It doesn't save your bullpen. It doesn't do anything. So the conversation here that I think that we're missing is pitch efficiency. And I think that's what's missing from the game these days. These guys don't know how to get outs quickly and efficiently. And so their pitch counts are way high up in the middle of the game. Now Kirby, he was out there for the seventh and he went to 102 pitches. That's like what we've been used to in the last, decade and a half. And so recently it just feels like that this is the way the game's going. And so again, I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the communication. Maybe it's a conversation you have with the manager first before you have it with the media.
Sure.
But it was the heat of the moment. I get it.
Now, Weave did actually tweet prior to this tweet a few weeks ago where he was talking about the Angels. And I think it might have been a Tyler Anderson start or maybe a Patrick Sandoval start where he was like, not going to go very far. It might have been a Detmers start. Not going to go far. It was the third inning. He's like, not going to go far with 70 pitches in the third inning, right? And so your pitch efficiency point is duly noted and well taken. Here's the question that I would have. The second question, Johnny, is this an old school versus new school situation? And does something need to change in the philosophy in how they manage these pitchers? Because these guys are pitching since they were young, but so did Weaver and so did Clemens and so did those guys. Now, Roger had a little bit of help. Weaver seemed to be a clean pitcher, which is what we're grateful for. But is there a philosophy that needs to change when it comes to pitching both starters and relievers?
I think what people fail to understand is how long these kids are throwing from a very young age, little league, all the way through middle school, high school, college, into the majors. And some of these kids are throwing curveballs when they shouldn't be throwing curveballs, Mike. They're doing that elbow thing with their throwing a curveball, and they're young pitchers and young teenagers throwing stuff like that. And it's not safe and it's not good on the elbow at all. And I think there's a lot of mileage on pitchers by the time they get to the majors, whether that's, they're in the minors for a long time and they finally get called up. There's a lot of mileage on these guys. The game is not like it was 30 years ago, right? The game is not like that when, so-and-so threw 150 pitches and it's like the game doesn't work like that anymore. And that's fine. That's just changing of the game. But to Weaver's point, and maybe Houston Street, who later did apologize to George Kirby, they were doing it 5, 6, 7 years ago and actually having 7 innings pitched and 8 innings pitched or complete games. Like very rarely do you see a complete game anymore. And I think it's just the way that this generation of pitchers is being built up. Again, it goes back to pitch efficiency. Yeah. How long have they emphasized strikeouts in the last decade or so? Like the last 10 years have been all about spin rates and strikeouts and this and that and the other. And that's not on these players. That's on the philosophy of all 30 major league clubs because they're all doing it, Mike. And they tried to do a pitch to contact thing with guys like Tyler Anderson. That's why he was so efficient the other night, getting through 8 innings. But with the banning of the shift, the pitch to contact thing is not really efficient anymore. Look at the Cardinals. They made no adjustments to their starting rotation this season, and they were awful. They were terrible, and they knew it, and they know that they have to revamp their starting rotation. So it's just a mash of philosophies of things from 30 years ago from 5 to 10 years ago. It's all coming to a head right now. And I just don't think that pitch efficiency is the emphasis that front offices are placing on their starting pitchers. I think that they're expecting a lot out of these guys, and they just can't seem to get all 9 innings like they used to. I think the reason behind that is because it's a top-down directive at the end of the day.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Game Time. With the Game Time app, buying tickets is fast and easy. You can get deals right up until the day of the event. No matter where you're going, you can go to a football game, basketball game, baseball game, and go to a concert, go to some comedy, maybe a theater, and even more than that. Game Time guarantees that you'll always get the best price and event cancellation protection. On the Game Time app, you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. See the images of where you're going to sit before you get there. And then the tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you don't have to dig through email to find them. And if you find tickets in the same section for less, Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference. So grab tickets right now without all the stress on the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. There are some terms that do apply. Again, create an account, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
So, Mike, after that whole conversation with Jered Weaver and George Kirby, the tweets back and forth, someone tweeted back to Weaver and said, "This is why the game needs you." And Weaver responded with, "Why? So I can deal with wimps like that?" He didn't say wimps. "I'd rather make lunches for my kids every morning than deal with mindsets like that." And Angel fans often, and you and I are guilty of this too, we ask for somebody like Gooby to come be the pitching coach because he sees things that Matt Wise obviously doesn't. Obviously, the key word there. So the question I have for you is, in this day and age, can a former player from a different era, even 5-10 years ago, step in and be the coach of the Angels or really any major league team at this point?
I think that if they step in, they're going to have to adopt the culture and the philosophies of today. I think the hard nose, I'm going to yell at you, I'm going to break you down, kind of military style way of coaching. Think like back in the 80s, like Mike Ditka when he was, coaching for the Bears. Bill Parcells when he was coaching for like the Patriots and the Giants. I know those are NFL examples, but those type of managers, those types of coaches, they just don't exist anymore. And I don't think that they are allowed to exist anymore, Johnny. And I think that that's what Weave is saying. I don't think Weaver's philosophy, and maybe even just as an athlete, but even in life, I don't think his philosophy would go over well with perception. I think that that's where he would get in trouble. Maybe not necessarily with the players, but I think that he would get in trouble with a lot of the cultural sensitivities that we have today.
Sure.
And not that those things are wrong. I'm not calling those things wrong, but I just think that there's a different approach to how you lead and how you develop people today that wasn't really in existence even just 5 years ago. And in fact, even just since COVID hit, right? Things have changed, and how you handle people change, and how they deal with you change. And so I think that that really is the point that Weaver is making. Not that he couldn't come in and I'm dealing with all these really wimpy guys, right? And that's the example he shared. I think there's a layer underneath that where he recognizes, like, it's just not going to fly. It's just not going to work. And I'll probably get in a whole lot of trouble because I'll come across as and be talked about as somebody who's maybe a bit abusive when I'm not trying to be. I'm actually really trying to encourage these guys and help them to be better. And so I think Weaver type of players are just not going to work in the modern day baseball. It's why I've said if Darren Erstad ever became the coach of this team, I don't know Darren Erstad. I've just seen how he plays and how he coaches. I think he would be like a Jim Harbaugh type of player. He would, or coach, because he would come in and probably 4 or 5 years, be really hard, push this team really hard, and then probably wear out his welcome, and they would have to get rid of him, right? And so I think those coaches will come in and quickly wear out their welcome, when instead somebody like maybe a Dusty Baker is able to adjust and pivot. I think Dusty's always been Dusty, though. I don't think that he's ever like this really hard, mean guy. I think he's always been Dusty, and his philosophy it works better in 2023 than it did in 2013 or in 2003, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, there's two parts to this that I want to point out. Number one, I think that when guys like Weaver speak on this sort of stuff, there is a tendency for players like Weaver, I'm not saying Weaver himself, there's a tendency for players to be like, well, this is how I had it when I was coming up. And, I had to peanut butter and jelly sandwich it through all the minor leagues. I had to sleep on cardboard, Like, and then there's a contingent of people that go, yeah, and that wasn't right. Like, as a minor leaguer, you should not have to share 8 people to one bedroom, and you shouldn't have to Uber on the side, and you shouldn't have to, skip a meal to afford rent or stuff like that. And that is like that's like a world-changing thing right now. Like, that's in the discussion, in the ether when it comes to everybody's lives at the moment. That's something, like you said, probably has come out of COVID, and we're all realizing, like, you know what? We're not going to put up with crappy situations anymore. I think I deserve better. So that's one part of it. And I think that often that conversation gets wrapped up in what these older players are saying. However, on the other side of it, I think that somebody like Weaver coming in and pushing a Patrick Sandoval or a Reid Detmers in terms of like, hey, you have him at 1 and 2. Strike him out.
Yeah.
Don't be a wimp, as Weaver might say. He would say it harsher than that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of hard-nosed, like, attack mode that I would like to see. It's what Detmers did against the Mariners last night. He was attacking the zone. It's what Tyler Anderson did. He was attacking the zone. I think that an aggressive pitching mentality is actually missing from modern day baseball right now.
I think you're 100% right. And to add to your point, did you hear David Wells actually talk about George Kirby? David Wells was asked about it, and he said, I would send these guys down to the minor leagues no matter what they're making. I would teach them a lesson that way. I think that philosophy would work 1,000%, because no matter what you're paying somebody, I know it would be hard to justify, and maybe with the owners it'd be hard to justify, but to send somebody down to AA or single A or triple A, right? And say, you got to figure this out before we bring you back up, I think would be the greatest teaching tool. And not that it's supposed to be like less luxurious there. I think that they should still take care of the players. It is less luxurious because it's not the major league. So I think that philosophy, from the old school guy like David Wells, I think that would work.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is I reading some of his comments, it's very much like, well, I had it rough, so you should have it rough too,
Yes.
And so again, it's a really hard line to walk, because like on one hand, these guys are trying to make a point about baseball in the modern age, but also they get wrapped up in like, well, I had it really crappy, so you should too.
It should suck for you.
Yeah. And that's what I can't stand.
Yeah.
It's like, we're here and now, it's 2023. Let's figure out how to make things better now. And again, I think like somebody like Weaver, his attack bulldog mentality would be very good for this team, especially the young starting pitchers that the Angels have.
Yes.
And they need that attack mentality.
And just for clarity, Jered, you could do no wrong in our
No, yeah, in my book, yeah. You're welcome to come on the podcast anytime.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels do play the Mariners at 6:40 tonight, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. John, he's playing that GIF in front of me again.
You're gonna look like Julio and feel that way if you miss the Angel game tomorrow night. Hey friends, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels, and of course on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros as well. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
With all the conversation about all these young guys, there is a name that's always intriguing and everybody really loves. We love him, and that is Jared Walsh.
Yeah.
What should his role be in the future of the Angels? Let's talk about that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation. By the way, I failed to mention this. After Paris made that mistake at third base, did you see Mike Moustakas talking to him in the dugout and helping him understand this? Yeah, so what a leader. Let's talk about him, bringing him back too as well.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that conversation about Jared Walsh and how he fits into this team tomorrow on Locked On Angels. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Played that GIF like 14 times in the show.
Julio Rodriguez.
It's a shame.